Once upon a time, in the early 1800s, two brothers named Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm began collecting magical tales from villages across Germany. These weren't the polished, sugar-sweet stories we often hear today. No, these were wild and wonderful legends full of clever animals, enchanted forests, and brave souls who stood up for what was right. Among their many tales was one about the most unexpected of heroes, a quiet young prince and a very wise bee. Today's story is The Queen Bee, a lesser-known but delightful tale that reminds us that true strength often hides in the smallest of creatures. It's a world where kindness is more powerful than a sword, where animals lend a helping paw or wing, and where the tiniest act of compassion can save an entire kingdom. So tuck in close and open your ears, because in this grim tale, you'll find that even the humblest heart can outshine the proudest prince. Two kings' sons once started to seek adventures and fell into a wild, reckless way of living and gave up all thoughts of going home again. Their third and youngest brother, who was called Whittling and had remained behind, started off to seek them. And when at last he found them, they jeered at his simplicity in thinking that he could make his way in the world, while they who were so much cleverer were unsuccessful. But they all three went on together until they came to an anthill which the two eldest brothers wished to stir up, that they might see the little ants hurry about in their fright and carrying off their eggs. But Whittling said,
"Leave the little creatures alone. I will not suffer them to be disturbed."
and they went on farther until they came to a lake where a number of ducks were swimming about. The two eldest brothers wanted to catch a couple and cook them, but Whittling would not allow it, and said,
"Leave the creatures alone. I will not suffer them to be killed."
and then they came to a bee's nest in a tree, and there was so much honey in it that it overflowed and ran down the trunk. The two eldest brothers then wanted to make a fire beneath the tree, that the bees might be stifled by the smoke, and then they could get at the honey. But Whittling prevented them, saying,
"Leave the little creatures alone. I will not suffer them to be stifled."
At last the three brothers came to a castle, where there were in the stables many horses standing, all of stone, and the brothers went through all the rooms until they came to a door at the end, secured with 3 locks, and in the middle of the door a small opening through which they could look into the room. And they saw a little grey-haired man sitting at a table. They called out to him once, twice, and he did not hear, but at the third time he got up, undid the locks, and came out. Without speaking a word, he led them to a table loaded with all sorts of good things, and when they had eaten and drunk, he showed to each his bedchamber. The next morning, the little grey man came to the eldest brother, and beckoning him, brought him to a table of stone, on which were written 3 things, directing by what means the castle could be delivered from its enchantment. The first thing was that in the wood, under the moss, lay the pearls belonging to the princess, 1,000 in number, and they were to be sought for and collected, and if he who should undertake the task had not finished it by sunset, if but 1 pearl were missing, he must be turned to stone. So the eldest brother went out and searched all day, but at the end of it he had only found 100. Just as was said on the table of stone came to pass, and he was turned into stone. The second brother undertook the adventure next day, but it fared with him no better than with the first. He found 200 pearls and was turned into stone. And so at last it was Whittling's turn, and he began to search in the moss. But it was a very tedious business to find the pearls, and he grew so out of heart that he sat down on a stone and began to weep. As he was sitting thus, up came the Ant King with 5,000 ants, whose lives had been saved through Whittling's pity, and it was not very long before the little insects had collected all the pearls and put them in a heap. Now the second thing ordered by the table of stone was to get the key of the princess's sleeping chamber out of the lake, and when Whittling came to the lake, the ducks whose lives he had saved came swimming, and dived below and brought up the key from the bottom. The third thing that had to be done was the most difficult, and that was to choose out the youngest and loveliest of the three princesses. As they lay sleeping, all bore a perfect resemblance each to the other, and only differed in this, that before they went to sleep, each one had eaten a different sweetmeat, the eldest a piece of sugar, the second a little syrup, and the third a spoonful of honey. Now the queen bee of those bees that Whittling had protected from the fire came at this moment, and trying the lips of all three, settled on those of the one that had eaten honey, and so it was that the king's son knew which to choose. Then the spell was broken. Everyone awoke from stony sleep, and took their right form again. And Whittling married the youngest and loveliest princess, and became king after her father's death. But his two brothers had to put up with the two other sisters. And so, with the spell broken and harmony restored, our kind-hearted prince found that compassion, not cleverness or cruelty, was the key to true greatness. The queen bee returned to her hive, the forest sang with joy, and even the once proud brothers learned the value of gentle deeds. This little-known gem from the brothers Grimm may not be as famous as Cinderella or Snow White, but it carries a powerful message that kindness, no matter how small, is never wasted. Thank you for joining me for this magical journey. If you enjoyed the tale, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss a moment of wonder. And most importantly, make sure to come back for more stories here at Grandma's house.